My name is Frode, and I'm joined by Brian Kibler, and we get to wrap up the show. What a fun weekend it's been, Kibler, but yet we still have more Hearthstone action coming here.
Yeah, we've had a lot of really cool formats that we've played so far in the Invitational, and we're going to have more of that now in the Tavern versus Tavern finals.
That's right. So for people who aren't familiar with the Tavern vs. Tavern program, a couple months back, we asked all the taverns to register to compete against each other in a very special format that involves them to cut down to the final two players, or final two teams rather, representing their cities and regions.
Yeah, we see there was 66 teams that ultimately entered the group stage where they played in a Pauper standard format. That cut down to a top 16 single elimination bracket where they played in a wild format, including a legendary draft where the teams could choose which legendary cards they wanted for their own decks.
Yeah, I heard that was a big hit. They said it was really fun. They got the exclusively choose stuff. And then, of course, we took the top two teams from that playoffs and who brought them to BlizzCon. They receive a gaming laptop guarantee as prizes, but there's definitely some interesting storylines coming here from The Cave from Fairfax, Virginia, a place that we see very often in the Hearthstone Championship Tour, and RazerStore San Francisco. So a little East Coast versus West Coast action here, Kibler.
And the format they will be playing here, however, is different than everything they've been playing before. Here at the Grand Finals, the three players will be playing the Tag Team Fireside Brawl. This is the Fireside Brawl that has been live for the previous month of October. They're going to play a best-of-3 match. And it's a really, really unusual format.
Yeah, in fact, it's my favorite unique format that we're presenting at BlizzCon this weekend. So to summarize it, you have 3 classes within the game that you choose. And from those 3 classes, you're going to have, you're trying to beat your opponents 3 times, and every time you lose, another class gets discovered and takes over.
Right, so the first player who goes in, they choose what class they want to play. And then when that player loses, they discover a new class to replace their hero. The entire board clears, they heal up to full life, the opponent heals a little bit too, and there's some interesting things about what does persist through these kind of a little bit of resets in the middle of the game. And the first team that defeats all 3 opponents in a game wins that game, and it's a best 2 out of 3 in terms of overall brawls.
And we'll continue to explain it, because I think after the first couple of games, you guys will get a good sense. But at the same time, it will be a best of 3 of 3, essentially, yes, from that point. Let's go ahead and meet the teams that will be battling for this Tavern vs. Tavern finals.
Hey BlizzCon, I'm David, also known as Shoop.
Hey BlizzCon, I'm Claire and I go by Chandyland, and we're from RazerStore SF.
So our third player is Morteza, aka Rage. So Rage isn't here for this video, he couldn't make it today, but I'm very excited to play the match with him at BlizzCon.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm the innkeeper here at RazerStore San Francisco, and we've been doing Hearthstone since the day we've opened. One of the unique things about Tavern versus Tavern is that it kind of opens your eyes to all the locations that are also playing Hearthstone and that really take it seriously and have a passion for it. You know, when you started with 64 teams of 3, I didn't know that there were so many taverns in the country. So it's really a lot of fun to communicate with everybody who's a part of it.
So when I first came to San Francisco, it was for a job interview, and I didn't know too many people here, but I knew Claire through Hearthstone, and she invited me to a fireside gathering. And it really meant a lot to show up in a new city and have this community of people who spoke the language of Hearthstone, understood what I was going through with tournament preparation, and since I moved here, I've been spending a lot of time with that group. They've come to be some of my closest friends.
My favorite part of finding a community here in the Hearthstone fireside gatherings, just like meeting people who just genuinely reminded me of why I started playing the game.
It's been amazing. There are so many great people here, and I've already made a few new friends. And I'm looking forward to playing with them more.
Playing Hearthstone at home is very laid back. You can play whenever you want, but playing Hearthstone in a community like this is very fun. Everyone's really close together. It doesn't matter if you lose or you win. Everyone's having a good time, and it's just a very good atmosphere overall.
You know, you might think that as a competitive player, as someone who takes the game very seriously, it doesn't matter that much to have an in-person community because you're always competing online. And I think it's the reverse. I think it actually matters a lot more if you're competing, because it means that you have in-person support, people you can spend an evening with playing another game, go out for dinner with, but who you can then talk to about Hearthstone and say, this is what's going on with this tournament, this is how my ladder's going this season, do you have any ideas? And they understand what you're going through and they can help.
The Cave Gaming Center in Fairfax, Virginia is a pretty awesome venue. They host weekly fireside gatherings, and there's a lot of people who come here, casual people, competitive people. I think most of us met as a result of the Tavern Hero qualifying circuit. There's 20, 30 people at this venue who come here regularly, and the three of us met and found that we're all really serious about it and kind of fused together a super team of the best and most competitive players at the Cave for this tournament.
Tavern versus Tavern is a more relaxed format. It's just about grabbing a group of friends and playing with them together against another tavern and having a good time with it.
I've been coming to Cave Firesides for about 2 years, and I've met a lot of great people, and we're always just helping each other, whether it's with competitive play or wacky decks. We're just always having fun, and sometimes we hang out outside of the fireside gatherings too.
It's so much more fun to play with other people than it is to play by yourself alone in your pajamas. It's a completely different experience, and I emphasize to anyone who plays Hearthstone that come to a fireside and just try it.
I grew up playing Blizzard games, and going to BlizzCon has always been a goal for me. So to achieve this and then actually get to share it with my friends is really exciting.
This is the dream. Getting to compete on stream at BlizzCon is like a once-in-a-career opportunity. It's really incredible.
That's right, we have the Tavern versus Tavern finals. And we couldn't be more excited to bring you guys the first team. So from San Francisco, please welcome RazerStore.
Here we see Team RazerStore SF taking the stage. Rage was actually a tutor of one of last year's World Championship competitors here. Shoop is a very high-level competitive player, won DreamHack, and Chamberlain has played in playoffs before as well.
Let's head over to Raven, waiting with the RazerStore people.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I'm here with this team. Good. Sorry, there we go. It's been a long day. Welcome to the stage, sorry. So first of all, Shoop, how has it been working as a team for you guys? Because this has pretty much been a team format all the way through as it's 3v3.
It's been really good. I think we all have different strengths that play well with each other.
Okay, and did you have any problems, like, communication-wise? Did you spend a lot of time working on the teamwork?
I think it came pretty naturally to us.
Okay, so just an easily formed up friendship. And Chandy, how have you guys been working with the format overall? Because there's been so many different formats to get to this point. Has it been pretty tough, or is it something you enjoy?
Honestly, for the deck building challenges, we were pretty much like Rage build our decks, so it was good.
Okay, and how excited are you to be playing and representing your Tavern? Obviously, all of you actually just, go to the Tavern a lot, play in the tournaments, but to be on the BlizzCon stage, what does this mean to you?
It's really amazing. Yes, playing Hearthstone for so many years, it just feels like a really big moment.
Okay, definitely will be. And Rage, are you taking all responsibility for the deck building at this point and everything to get you this far? Because everyone knows you as a huge deck builder. Is that puts a little bit of pressure on you?
I think in some regard, yes. I probably would have never built the decks if Shoop and Chandy didn't push me to actually do it, because I am not a very responsible person. But it was quite fun. I think having the team dynamic, having a team to play the game is actually quite fun. And it's really enjoyable, and I'm happy that they're with me.
Okay. We're happy too, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys play. But we are ready to welcome the next team to the stage. It's going to be The Cave.
The Cave, hailing from Fairfax, Virginia, a location that we see a lot of Tavern heroes and a hotspot for the Hearthstone Championship Tour's prelims.
Yeah, the Cave has been sort of the epicenter of East Coast Hearthstone Championship Tour action for the past few years.
Once again, Raven is waiting with the Cave members.
Thank you. Welcome to the stage, guys. How are you feeling about this? Just standing on, the BlizzCon Hearthstone stage, ready to go into the Tavern versus Tavern finals.
It's amazing. I would have never imagined being here before.
Okay, it's going to be pretty exciting. And we heard from the other team there, I'm sure you heard that they pretty much designated Rage as a core deck builder throughout their journey here. Did you guys have anyone specific that built the decks, or was it a team effort overall?
It was mostly me and Deep Pac-Man. We like to deck build a lot.
Okay, and is that something you do, on ladder as well, and in tournaments bring experimental decks as opposed to just, being one of those net decking people I've heard of a few times?
Well, I'm more of the net decker on ladder, but he actually only plays casual and loves to play wacky stuff.
Yeah, I'm told you don't have the legendary card back, but you have the golden celebration card back. Is this? Can you confirm this officially on the stage?
This is true. I don't need a card back to know I'm a legend.
That's fair enough. No more codes from me on that one. And just last of all, you've got a lot of your Tavern supporting you here. How does it feel? Do you think that's going to help you in this match?
I mean, look at these beautiful Murlocs behind us. There's no way that the Tavern isn't going to support us.
Okay, very, very confidence from both teams. You guys want to shake hands, and we'll see who's going to be the best Tavern.
All right, you know what? I really like the game, guys. You know, I only got to chat with them very briefly. I got to talk to D-Pac-Man, Conrad, and Rich. And one thing that I've noticed is that it seems like more than just Hearthstone players, they're kind of a band of brothers. You got a little sense of that through the profile. They were talking about how much they actually value each other. But then they're also doing very fun, tongue-in-cheek activities like Hearthstone exercise, like they're doing push-ups while playing. Obviously, they don't really do that, but it just shows that they're really having a lot of fun together.
Yeah, it's interesting the diverse set of backgrounds they have. Yeah, we talked about how two of them have qualified for the Hearthstone Championship Tour previously as Tavern Heroes, and like you said, one of them doesn't even play ladder. He just likes to play casual, wacky decks.
That's right. D-Pac-Man got to the top 8 of the summer playoffs last season, in the summer season.
He doesn't play on ladder.
And he doesn't even play ladder. And if that's not an inspiring story for people who want to try Hearthstone tournaments, I don't know what is.
And now here he is on the stage at BlizzCon in the Tavern versus Tavern finals.
That's right. Now, of course, RazerStore SF, I think they don't need too much introduction if you follow Hearthstone in the hardcore community. Shoop, of course, has won DreamHack earlier this year. Rage, a prominent deck builder. In fact, he's won a lot of online tournaments like the ESL King of the Hills, where he was the undisputed champion after the series was ended. And then Chanlan's been participating in a lot of tournaments for many years now.
So just to remind everyone, we are playing the Fireside Brawl format. The way this works is that you start with one class of a pre-constructed deck, and when you defeat your opponent, they replace with a new class. They discover a new class, the board clears, and you kind of start over again. But there are certain things that persist through that. One of those are quests.
Yes.
You see the Cave choosing to play the Jungle Giants deck to start, and that potentially means that they can have a quest that persists through even after death.
That's right. These are preset Brawl decks. And so we have a pretty good understanding of what they're choosing. And each class has an assignment. So for example, the Shaman is called Totems versus Secrets. And that is largely because a lot of people have discovered how powerful the Mage class is. A lot of people said that Mage might be the best deck. And so a lot of people have been starting Mage in their first games. But then Shaman can just straight up counter it because they have so many things that destroy secrets. because on Mystic, Eater Secrets.
Yeah, there's a number of various strategies that you can take in this particular brawl. We tried it out actually just the day before BlizzCon, and we're trying to experiment with, okay, well, what are the things that do persist through death? What are the various tools within each of the classes? And it looks like RazerStore SF may have gone for a little bit of a next level play, trying to start with the Shaman, expecting the Cave to open with Mage.
This is not the kind of start that you necessarily want as the Druid. They have a couple of awkward cards like the Blood of the Ancient one, but they should stay safe because they have plays for the next turns. And we look at the Totem Golem number 2 draw, which allows them to curve very nicely for the next couple turns here.
Yeah, there are some cards that are good against Secrets. There's some cards that are just good against opponents, and Totem Golem, especially following up a Tunnel Trog, is one of them.
All right, let's go ahead and listen to Razer. They're already discussing a lot about this turn.
Cool. Yeah, BM. What do you think is good?
End turn.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
So we want to kill them as fast as possible to deny quest progress.
Yeah.
We also don't want to be overloaded into our... Is that like last? I think it does, right?
I would assume so.
Yeah.
Definitely like Elder here. I mean, they're probably going to go face.
Yeah.
And do we ever play this?
Turn?
I mean, he likes developing the... We have to make a decision next turn if we're going to trying to win this game, or just trying to develop our quest.
I doubt we're trying to win it, but we want to pull as much stuff out of their hand as possible before we end it.
So maybe that's actually the argument for the taunt.
So let's do this.
Yep. All right, let's see.
Plus 3 health.
Wait. Let's just think about it. Let's just think about it.
Death Rattle isn't horrible.
So the 1, it would go there, and then you'd have 2 Death Rattles. The 3 health.
I mean, I think
either way we get punched by Maelstrom. So
3 health is strictly better. I think.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so do it.
turn.
Well, there is the fact that.
So one interesting thing there was that not only were they talking about what play they wanted to make on this particular turn, they were even talking about, are we trying to win this life? You know, are we trying to actually defeat the shaman with our druid, or are we just trying to exhaust their resources and potentially get some quest progress? So definitely a very interesting level of strategies that are going on in this game.
Yeah, and that's really important to note, as RazerStore seems like they're going to go for the double overload so that they can get as much damage and board presence as possible, complicate the trades from the Elder Longneck. Very good move here. And I agree with this. Do not trade, pressure the life total, and it's something that you're kind of mentioning, Kibler. At the end of the round, so to speak, and when you kill your opponent, you actually just keep the hand that you have. Right. So if you have no cards as Shaman, and say all your minions die because the 10-mana spell comes out into play, then pretty much you're just top decking at that point. And you have to fill out your mana curve because the 10 crystals stay with you. You don't restart from 1 crystal again.
And this is an interesting decision from the Cave here. They can choose to play a taunt and try and exhaust more of their opponent's resources, or play a 5-attack minion and get quest progress.
And this is something that actually shocked me about the Cave starting off with Druid. Druid has very heavy a very heavy mana curve for their deck list. They have Jungle Giants at 1 mana, they have Tortolan Forager at 2 mana, and then everything else is pretty much like a couple of 3 drops and then 5 and higher because of how expensive all these cards are. And so Druid's a lot better in the 2nd or 3rd choice as a class.
Right, you not only keep your rather your opponent keeps their cards, you keep both players keep all their mana crystals. So as the game goes on, the decks that have lots of powerful things like the Tyrannitus we see in the hand of the Cave, that's a lot more powerful when you can just play it immediately rather than have it sitting and rotting in your hand.
So it's almost certain that Druid will drop here. Now, RazerStore SF will be thinking about what's the minimal amount of resources I can spend, and how do I set up my plays to be flexible?
And the Cave, they recognize, okay, we're going to lose this particular life, so they want to get progress on the Jungle Giants quest in order to give themselves more power in their next life.
Right. And of course, that is interesting to think about how the next life is. So what are they trying to do? They're going to probably maybe pick another deck that has to have synergy with that. In the meantime, RazerStore SF, they're thinking about what's the least amount of commitment that they want to do here. And once you attack, the turn is over. You can't do anything else. You can't play things to set up for next turn.
Your next victim comes, destroys all of the minions, restores health to the other player, and now you choose a new hero.
And people are talking about how Mage is a fantastic class here, and they see he might be strong.
However, they are currently playing against Shaman. Yes. And Shaman is the class that has the tools to defeat Mage, thanks to the Kezan Mystic and Eater of Secrets we see in RazerStore's hand.
I'm a big fan of the Rogue deck as well in this Fireside Brawl, primarily because it has so many good tempo tools and because it's a great bridge class as well. You can set up weapons. Weapons carry over after death, and there's a lot of even useful things like Leeching Poison. You don't expect that to be really useful, but when you have 20 health, damage really matters.
It does. You know, one of the first games that we played, I had a Sherazin in play and a deadly poison on a weapon when I died as Rogue. Wait a minute, I thought I lost all my stuff. No, there are important elements that do persist.
And now you're starting to see the carryover in mana crystals and why it's valuable. Van Cleef can come out on this first turn as a 6/6 at maximum power, or even higher if you want to backstab your minion.
And we see the quest remains, as we mentioned. And there is progress, and Van Cleef here is going to continue to provide progress to this. And it comes into play as a 6/6. The quest increments, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe I don't know how Van Cleef and the quest work.
Wait, is it because it's an effect on the card and itself is not a 5-attack minion?
I don't know.
You know, these are interactions that I don't think we really test.
I've never seen Jungle Giants Van Cleef before.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it would work, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was in your camp. I think the way the Cave set that up, they might be surprised too, but that's part of the experience factor too, and partially why there's so much cool synergy across the board when you start blending the classes. I think a lot of people got a taste of that with the dual class arena.
And we see RazerStore, they realize, okay, well, we're not going to be most likely playing this deck into a Mage at this point. We're just going to play out our Kezan Mystic. We want to get on the board to contest this presence from the Cave.
Too bad that the Cave doesn't have a dagger up, because Gadget Sand, Deadly Poison, Backstab was pretty much the ideal clear with Popper Pressure, but they're still in a good spot.
The Avalanche here with the spell power could be used to freeze one of the minions, kill the other one, giving a lot of tempo to the Cave here.
It's pretty close to a 2-turn lethal if you really think about it, because they have 8 power on board with a Deadly Poison dagger, so they do 16 over 2 turns with Deadly Poison. That's 19. And that's already threatening to kill.
But it is worth noting that trying to figure out how to appropriately manage your resources in these games to ensure that you have enough left over for the next challenger after you defeat your opponent's current class.
Which is why I really like the Rogue, because they do have the Gadget Stand Auctioneers in the deck, so you can get that card draw. You know, I've played as some of the other classes, and I just feel like I run out of so much steam if I all in on one class in particular.
All right, well.
I like it. Pressure.
The Cave does have this backstab they could use here, but using the backstab here is a resource they don't have for the next life. So I think that they decide, okay, we are going to finish this game off before that Kizan Mystic becomes relevant and not end up committing the backstab at this point.
Yeah, and also because their Auctioneer scales a lot better than the Avalanche, because Shaman or other classes in general might have small tokens, versus Gadget Stand with more mana crystals gives you more opportunity to draw more cards.
And RazerStore here, we heard them talking about whether Overload persists through lives, for if they were to Lightning Storm and then get killed.
It's a good question.
Would their next life end up with two mana crystals overloaded?
Right.
I haven't played this enough to know exactly how that works. I haven't been overloaded right when I've died. So
I kind of just want to know for science.
Absolutely. I hope they do it, just so we can find out.
Well, interesting thing to note, too, is that death battles do resolve in a very normal fashion based off of the destruction of the board. So if you say it's Sheridan, for example, it just goes into the dormant state. Right. Next class can also use it. But also, if you played, say, like a Haunted Creeper or a Sludge Belcher, you leave behind the tokens as well.
Yeah.
Totemic Might to stall and not die. And if you know you're going to lose, you might as well use every card possible because you're going to be losing it.
Right. And it's exactly opposite for the Cave. They want to try to preserve as much as they possibly can. Ooh, that Razor Pedal can give them more tools, though. Auctioneer, if they're able to get a big Auctioneer turn, it could actually punish RazerStore FF for trying to draw this out.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because you know, the Cave has lethal, or has the ability to lethal, I believe. But do they want to invest everything to it?
Right.
Backstab and the Razor Pedal volleys. And then it's like, well, you just lost two very powerful cards with Gadget Stand Auctioneer.
Yeah, and it is a significant issue. You know, chat can spam missed lethal all they want, but it can actually be intentional. That you decide
keep them alive.
Right, exactly. You want to keep your opponent alive so you can generate more resources. But it looks like the Cave is going to go for the kill right now.
Yeah, and the one thing about this too is that you do end up healing a little bit. You just pay attention very closely to the card details when the card hovers over the screen. You'll notice it says destroy all minions, drain all mana, but you also see gain 5 health, and that's on the opponent's side. Rogue would have gained 5 health.
Yes.
So it also felt like the Cave had an opportunity to maybe let the Kazan Mystic maybe even attack them to perhaps utilize the health gain and gain an extra card or turn to maybe find more efficient resource usage.
Right. Well, RazerStore has a choice between Warrior, Warlock, and Hunter. We see the little sub-names. The Rock, Death Becomes, and Unleash the Beasts.
Yeah. I really like Warlock in this classes or in this Fireside Brawl as well. I think
they
it's very
are overloaded.
Oh, they are. You're right. You're totally right. And they can't wield their Fizzlebane hero power. The reason why is because Warlock has a lot of tempo tools. But Void Caller is in this deck, as well as Cool the Unshackles, as you already see.
Speaking of tempo, they have the Trafficker this turn into Cruel the Unshackled next turn. That can throw a lot of powerful demons into the board. Sadly, they get a 1-drop from the Trafficker itself.
Yeah, and Rogue isn't exactly known for healing in regular Hearthstone, nor in the Fireside Brawl. So any kind of pressure you can put on your opponent is extremely valuable. Gadget Stand was the setup here. There is a Viral Spine Slay on the deck, so that's the main way Rogue can deal with big threats, but now they don't have enough mana to do things about it.
Ooh, Eviscerate allows them to clear off this Trafficker and pick up an extra card if they so choose.
Yes. That's pretty huge. You're going to force RazerStore SF to answer this Gadget Stand immediately while still keeping your resource count pretty high. And Leeching Poison can be extremely valuable as well when Rogue starts utilizing his life as a resource, considering 20 is the maximum that you can go to for this mode.
Cave looks like they're debating exactly how they want to use their resources this turn. Eviscerate does go to the Trafficker. And
you never know. A hesitation could make RazerStore question what kind of other cards they might have in their hands.
It's true.
And RazerStore does have the type of players, the caliber of players that will read into stuff like that.
Absolutely. And not much reading to do into a Cruel the Unshackled, though, as a fistful of demons all hit the board.
Oh, my goodness.
It is worth noting, though, that this does invest a ton of resources for RazerStore. All of the demons in their hand are now committed to winning this particular life in this game. So they don't have those cards remaining in their hand for the next iteration of this particular challenge.
That is why I do believe Warlock's really powerful, because Life Tap allows you to get out of those top deck situations. Because, you know, assuming hypothetically classes are equal in power level and you go 1 for 1, you're going to need a source of card draw.
And we see the Cave putting their quest from their first life as a druid up to 4. And crucially, they want to wait until they are on the next life in order to actually complete the quest. Because they don't want to get the Barnabas, play the Barnabas, and then have their deck go away and the entire effect be lost.
I have a question. So if, you know, if a new hero, you know, when you kill everything on the board and you have to pick a new hero to select for your class, do you get the coins? Or the coins go to the hand of the rogue and then disappear, and then you have to choose.
For the
right? Because we talked about how death battles resolve not naturally. But I'm also thinking, because for a while I was like, well, the Cave could have also tossed in the Tomb Pillager a while ago.
Sure.
And now they chose to save it. Oh, they ran out of time. Did they get off this leeching poison?
I don't know. They did.
Looks like they did. Okay, so at least they draw a card.
And worth noting as well, the weapon with the leeching poison will persist through this life. So if RazerStore SF finishes them off right now, they will have a 4 quest completion Jungle Giants, as well as a life-stealing weapon in play.
This is really cool. The Cave is not trying to play a traditional you know, war of resources, battle of attrition, where you just kind of trade and try to get the slight edge. It seems like they're trying to power load everything onto the final class by having a big Barnabas set up so that they can flood the board and just basically run away with the game and overwhelm RazerStore back-to-back classes. So they're sacrificing a lot of the early game, and we'll see if RazerStore can really brace for that, because they've got quite a powerful class to back it up without taking any damage, really.
Fizzlebang. Ooh, the Gluttonous Ooze does mean that they can answer the weapon, so it will not persist through this life. And RazerStore as well, they're not just pushing for damage here. They are putting the Cave in a position where they need to potentially invest. And look at this, if they do play the Gallywix, that means that their Jungle Giants is on this particular life.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. RazerStore had the option to kill. There's 14 life, 14 damage on board. RazerStore chose to clear everything because they recognize the power of giving their opponents the coins. I think that's what they're afraid of.
And this is a matter of, you know, yes, they had lethal. They did not want to kill their opponent because that does not end the game. That merely ends this particular life for the Cave, but they recognize they can get themselves into a better position to win the overall game.
And because they know they gain 5 life, they need to life tap. Yes. Otherwise, the 5 health gain has no impact for them whatsoever. And, you know, the Cave is starting to go a little bit on the aggressive, recognizing that even they're in a bad position, they might as well start utilizing the resources, do extra damage if they can. And if they do heal for 5, Warlock's not going to be at max life.
Yep, and yeah, they decide to kind of fight back the same plan. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to try and get something that persists at the next life too. I'm going to try and get some damage on you, and that's exactly what they do.
It's so funny, like both teams are playing with the knowledge that they know who's going to lose, but they're playing with that inevitability.
By the way, Void Caller, very interesting card, because its Death Rattle will trigger and then put your demon into play at the start of the next life. If you happen to remember, when we were playing this one game, I had a giant anaconda that died and put a Tyrannosus into play.
That's exactly what happened. He played like Yasharaj, I believe, and that summoned a giant anaconda. The board died. I think I lost, but then it summoned a Tyrannosus from his hand, and I was very much in trouble.
All right, well, RazerStore does have the opportunity to. They can't actually close the game now, though. And if they do play their Void Caller right now, rather than when they can actually end the game, it ends up putting the Cave in a position where perhaps they can remove it and prevent the development in the next life as well.
Important to note as we look at the Warlock deck, it's not actually just a singleton deck or a Highlander deck. It's also a weapon removal deck. Hence the Gluttonous Ooze also has a couple of other tools, like Acidic Swamp Ooze, in their arsenal. And Warlock is primarily used in this brawl as a weapon removal class.
Well, the Cave is very wealthy right now. 3 coins and a Trade Prince in their hand, but they are sticking with their strategy of trying to save that Jungle Giants for their final life.
And this is, in my opinion, a product of what they built up to prior to this moment. They had an opportunity to toss in Tomb Pillager at the Shaman's death, and then be able to utilize that coin to draw a card deeper and to get more value off their Gadget Sand. Right now, they're drawing dead in air quotes, primarily because they didn't get really deep in their deck in the first place with Auctioneer.
Yep. And RazerStore now, if they so choose, they can commit the Void Caller, attack in, and guarantee a demon essentially starting the next life in play.
I think I would like an extra card over the extra 2 life here, but at the same time, you do have so much mana to spend. You could argue otherwise. Harrison Jones, very useful too. It shuts off it makes your opponent hesitate to pick a weapon-based class. And the Cave, by the way, can also just pick Rogue again if offered the choice. If you are given the choice, you can hypothetically play the same class 3 games in a row.
All right, we see the 5 life given to RazerStore, and the Death Rattle from the Void Caller does put an Apothecary into play. And that will empty. Amusingly, it empties all their mana, but they have a 0-cost Harrison Jones that they can also play now if they want.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to take that 5 damage to draw an extra card here.
Well, it draws you an extra card, does put a 5/4 into play, but it also means that if your opponent is playing weapon class, you don't have access to Harrison Jones to possibly remove their weapon as well.
The thing is, your opponent has 10 mana, so if they play like Mage, they might just draw a single card to kill you with Fireball, for example.
All right, well, the Cave could choose they could choose Druid again with the Jungle Giants already set to 4 and 10 mana to start their life.
I think they will draw the quest. It's an empty card, but it fits their strategy. Jungle Giants comes in the hand again.
Get another one.
You draw 7 cards, and they have 10 mana crystals, and this is what we're talking about. Druid is a good cleanup class.
Right. And now look at this. They can play 1 5-attack minion to complete their quest. They can then Nourish to draw 3 cards to potentially draw just gigantic minions.
I'm excited, Gibbler. We see Blood of the Ancient One come to hand. I would love to see the Ancient One be able to win a game on a big stage like BlizzCon.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. I'm not terribly optimistic about the chances, considering that I don't even see a way for them to activate it, but I'm hopeful.
Well, there's a Faceless in the deck as well.
Yes.
There's also a second copy of Blood of the Ancient One, which will cost 0 once Jungle Giants is completed.
True that.
So they actually have to play the minion and then the Barnabas this turn. So they can't fire off the Nourish immediately to get the 0-cost minions. So still, pretty powerful turn.
Extremely powerful.
A 5/4 Divine Shield into an 8/8 that reduces the cost of all minions in your deck to 0. So the Cave clearly played this entire game for the long game. They were setting up for this final life of getting Jungle Giants active right away.
Well, Implosion pickup means that RazerStore can answer the Barnabas, and at least in their eyes, can't die at the moment. I'm trying to evaluate the other plays too, and I'm looking at the rest of their deck. They've already used a lot of their top end. We saw Cruelly Unshackled, for example, and Wilfred Fizzlebank. They do have a Mal'Ganis in there too, and an Abyssal Enforcer, but those are also weak cards in this situation. So RazerStore doesn't have as many options as they'd like, because they went for that big all-in with Cruel, and that is one of the drawbacks of the Warlock. Even though it has a lot of great top end, it does tend to push very aggressively, and if you lose that board to a reset, you could be in trouble.
All right, well, they only get a 2 from their Implosion, but Despicable Dreadlord will still finish off Barnabas. And they get to take out the Druid's remaining dagger with the 0-cost Harrison. Let's find Mal'Ganis. That could be a big deal. All right, well, it is Barnabas time. All these 0-cost minions in the Cave's hand, they can just start chaining card draw.
Yep.
And huge minions coming down.
Yeah, so they could clear most of the board, if not all, pretty much all of it, and then Nourish for cards and just play pretty much any minion that they draw. There are a handful of spells, as you guys already have seen, but if the Cave hits, say, I don't know, the Tarantus or Yasharaj or Kun the Forgotten King or, I don't know, maybe even the second Blood of the Ancient One, they can set it for some pretty powerful board states.
All right, 3 cards. That's not a minion. That's not that exciting. Gluttonous Ooze, that was a pretty unimpressive Nourish when you consider what possibilities were in their deck.
Yeah. Still have the ability to go wide on the board and clear most of this.
Time waits for no one.
Another Jungle Giants comes down.
I mean, sure, you might get a 5-mana 8/8.
They can just continue to get more monsters here if they do run out.
You're right, it's the buff. It doesn't count for it, because the Celestial Dreamer should have counted towards the quest if Van Cleef did, but it did not. Therefore, it's...
That must have changed in the recent update, because I know the Celestial Dreamer used to count toward the Druid quest, because I played Druid quest with Celestial Dreamer at some point.
I trust you on that completely. Danksteed comes in the hand of RazerStore, and I don't think that's going to be really useful in this position. Does have the Imps... Oh, this is actually a real domino effect. Because Implosion was not able to get a higher count, you don't have as many imps for proper trading and board presence.
All right, there's the Giant Anaconda, 0 cost. Don't want none unless it costs 10, son.
Or at least 5 attack. I mean,
yeah, but you want to hit a 10 cost with your Anaconda.
Blood of the Ancient One's pretty good.
That's true. That's true.
There's definitely a handful of thick minions in this Druid deck for sure. High priority is to remove that Mal'Ganis. Mal'Ganis, definitely one of those solo cards, or a high priority threat, or some terms that we would say super taunt. If it doesn't die, it can pretty much win this entire five-side brawl by itself.
Absolutely. And both teams, by the way, are on their final lives here. So whoever wins, actually no, RazerStore has one left.
That's right. And the big thing is if they have an ability to deal with these heavy minions, and they're going to need a control buster of some kind.
Yep. And that's what the Cave's been setting up for. They're trying to get themselves in a position where they just have lots of gigantic things that they can easily play to overwhelm their opponent, even though they get the first turn with full mana.
Sherazin, normally a card that kind of goes awkwardly with really a lot of high-end dense threats, like Druid, for example. But in this case, you're going to play a lot of cheap minions. And the moment you hit more card draw, you're going to be able to play 4 a turn. Of course, Sherazin is much more powerful early on, so that's what makes Rogue a great candidate as a first pick for a class.
And now RazerStore, they have a handful of decent cards. They would love to have maybe a Hellfire that could clear this, but even that would leave a minion in play from the Anaconda.
Yeah, it's really scary about the Anaconda too, because you don't know if killing it kills you. Yashirash comes on the other side, and on the other side you lose.
Well, again, one of the important things, I guess it doesn't matter in this because it's impossible for... No, it does matter in this because the board be cleared. If they don't kill the Anaconda and the game resets to the next life...
You're right.
The Death Rattle will cause a gigantic minion to start in play for the next stage.
Yeah, and you have to deal with that. And if it's a Tyrantus, it doesn't matter if you have a single target removal. Actually, well, no, I won't spoil anything. There is a corner case scenario, which actually happened exactly to me and Gibler, with this exact scenario. We won't spoil it, though. RazerStore SF still does have some pretty good follow-up plays, though. Definitely a big fan of setting up any of these 4-mana minions of like... ooh, you know, I was thinking the Twilight Drake, but Dreadsteed is also an interesting thought, too, because that also persists beyond the board. So if they think that they're going to die for some reason, they have the Dreadsteed for the following turn.
Interesting. They chose not to clear the Anaconda. I think they're trying to give themselves potentially another turn here to maybe whittle down some of the Cave's life. This seems a little bit strange to me because they will get a board reset no matter what when they are defeated, and they potentially are giving the Cave more time to amass resources for the next life.
Well, I mean, you could probably tell that the Cave has been very conservative with their Barnabas.
Yes. Like,
for example, or their quest, rather. Why haven't they been going big, wide, and hitting really hard? They could be drawing spells, for example. So RazerStore says, do they have both copies of Feral Rage, for example, and they can just kill us? Let's set up the Dreadsteed instead, so that way we could be more resilient to a board wipe. And then, of course, on the Cave's end, it's not that they drew, you know, bad spells or anything. They drew pretty reasonable things with Moonglade Portal, just been awkward to use.
Time waits for no one. And now the Cave wants to try to set up a potentially persistent board through the next life, and Sherazin can do just that.
Yeah.
Heal up their Anaconda here.
Oh, my goodness. That's pretty funny. Because they got Reckless Rocketeer, they actually had an opportunity to kill the Warlock this turn if they Moonglade Portaled first. That is an actual sequencing, importance of sequencing in this scenario.
Defile Dreadsteed.
Yeah, literally the reason why
Dreadsteed was infinite right here. For those who don't know, Dreadsteed used to immediately be resummoned and would cause Defile to be cast an unlimited number of times.
Yes.
I think that we may be seeing the Defile cast here, however, just to try and clear things up for the RazerStore.
Yes.
It will also deal damage to whatever comes off of the Anaconda.
Very much so.
And that lines up pretty well.
I'd say. And if Warlock's going to die, you want no cards in the hand. This actually works out really well for Razor. And despite the fact that the Cave strategy of the early Quest Druid being able to be completed now twice, it's still not as easy sailing as they thought it'd be once you start getting those big fat minions on board.
And they can Barnabas #2 in a single game right here.
Sure.
Doesn't have much of an additional effect, just a 5-cost 8/8, but I mean they do still need to finish off RazerStore.
Yeah, this is starting to become really concerning for the Cave, primarily because they don't have the ability to reload as strongly as they'd like to. The point is to have one big threat, or maybe two, end the round, and then you force your opponent to repick a class.
Right.
And then you play 3 or 4 of them, and then you're suddenly right back to where you started, and then you win the game.
The Cave trying to find exactly how to punch through and finish off RazerStore without using too many of their resources, because they are on their last life. They need these cards to get them through not just this particular class, but the final class that RazerStore chooses.
Yeah. This is tough. Tortilla Forager seems to be a pretty neutral way to start the turn so that you can evaluate whatever you get. But in this case, it seems like the cave just wants to start off immediately with removal. And then Barnabas just to threaten the life total.
Yeah, just to punch through, get a big monster to play.
And if I'm RazerStore SF, I'm honestly pretty happy with how this this round went on both sides here. I definitely felt like I was going to die a lot earlier, and now RazerStore SF has gotten some pretty decent damage and drained Druid of a lot of cards in their hand.
And that's really your goal in these earlier stages, is to try to force your opponent to have as little as possible when the game ultimately does end.
And an extra card as well from the Blue Loot Hoarder. These small little advantages are starting to add up here, and I feel like RazerStore SF has all the right tools to set themselves up for a win. Oh my goodness, hold on.
One of the really crazy things is because of the Jungle Giants, and they have so many things, the cave has so many things that cost 0, even though their mana pool clears, they could still play a bunch of things after the turn clears. We saw that with Harrison Jones in the previous turn.
Well, as far as I know, the turn ends immediately. You drain all your you drain all your mana. Oh, you're right.
Mana. Yes, they have the opportunity here to develop now. But they do have set up for next turn the Ancient One. They have Blood of the Ancient One and Faces Manipulator for 0 mana.
Right.
They will be able to play a 30/30 next turn if RazerStore SF chooses a class that does not deal well with large minions.
That's so interesting. I have never seen the Ancient One win a game except for one time on Creep Stream where he played Resurrect. This is an option, though. The one class I was going to say that can definitely go toe-to-toe with Druid in terms of late game is Priest. The Unbreakable deck has a lot of late game options. And, you know, the RazerStore, we were actually even talking about that specific matchup, Druid versus Priest.
And that's what they choose. Priest has a lot of powerful tools. Let's see.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you have the Ancient One if you pick up a Mind Control, for example.
That is a handful of some of the lower impact cards. They do find Shadow or Death, so sadly the Ancient One will not run roughshod over its opponents.
Right.
We'll see if the cave does choose to even make it, though. They recognize, of course, against Priest, at this many mana crystals, there are a lot of problematic cards if they choose to play a single giant minion.
Yeah. They'll try to bait it out for sure. How awful does the Pit Lord feel to play, by the way? In a format like this where you have, you know, 67% of the amount of life that you normally have, every bit of damage feels like it counts double, almost.
All right, well, Holy Nova clears off the board the cave was able to develop after the clear, and that Dreadsteed, though, still coming in.
I feel for the cave. I feel like they had such a good strategy to try and to backload a lot of their threats, but they're just kind of drawing awkwardly with like the Tortilla Folgers.
Let's see it. I want to see the Ancient One. I just want to see it. It can't be right.
It can't. Well,
but
I think you're no.
If you're
I
gonna
think
go
it
out,
is
go
right.
out in style.
I think you might be right because look at their other options: Corehound and Pit Lord.
Right. I'm not saying it can't be. It can't be a winning play. You have to be in that position and be like, okay, well, if I make a 30-30, there's so many things that can go wrong. But on the other hand, if you don't make a 30-30, you also just give your opponents time to potentially. Yes, it's happening. It is happening. The Ancient One is going to spawn here on the stage at BlizzCon.
For about 5 seconds.
30-30 right there.
I think some people who might be new to Hearthstone may have opened a Blood of the Ancient One with their free Whispers of the Old Gods packs, and they say, well, how come people don't play this? Card's OP, I just win in one turn. Well, you're about to find out why.
Oh, now it's dead. It was so cool for just a moment.
And now I can summarize for you the first hour of that stream for Kriparian. Good times. That was a nice trip down memory lane.
All right. Oh, and shadow form. Yeah, this is just going to whittle down the very little life the cave has remaining.
Yeah, they
need a miracle.
Yeah,
they need a miracle. They need to pick up something that draws cards.
Yes.
Tyrannotus, 0 cost, 12/12, not good enough.
That was literally the card they needed the previous turn.
It was.
That can't be interacted with Priest. The way I was able to get it away from Kibler was a Sylvanas play by stealing the Tyrantus, and that's going to mean the first game goes to RazerStore San Francisco.
Yeah, and we see the Tavern patrons cheering on their champions here. And yeah, this is a great community event. It's really what all the Tavern experience is about. You know, we see the players coming together themselves, other players from their taverns cheering them on here on the stage as well.
That was one game. I just want to clarify that that was one game. RazerStore currently leads 1-0, and it's a best of 3 of what you just watched. So if RazerStore wins one more of that set, that is the entire match.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if the players choose to adapt their strategies knowing what their opponents have chosen. And we saw RazerStore lead with Shaman. Will that dissuade the Cave from picking Mage early on? Will we see a single Jungle Giant strategy? It'll be interesting to see how this develops.
There's a lot of different strategies, and you can see why we like it. Hopefully you guys can't wait for the next one. When we come back, we're going to have more action here at BlizzCon for the Tavern vs. Tavern Finals.
The 2017 Hearthstone Invitational is brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Tavern. If you guys are just joining, you came for a very good match. We're currently in the middle of our Fireside Brawl Finals. This has been a really fun match so far. And I guess you guys who saw the first game get a little taste of why we like it so much. Now, Kibler, once again, if people are just joining us, I know people are walking a lot around even the Tavern floor itself for BlizzCon. Why don't we once again explain how this works?
Yeah, this is the Fireside Brawl. So the way that it works, the 3 players on the team, they're tag teaming this brawl. They're playing an overall best of 3 match. Each of the games within the match, kind of a number of mini games itself. So each player chooses a class to begin. These are all pre-constructed decks. When that player is defeated using that class, the board clears. There's a big heal effect. The game or the turn rather essentially ends, and they choose a new class. So the team to defeat 3 of their opponent's classes will overall win the game.
That's right, and there's a lot of teamwork required. As you can see, lots of communication going down. And RazerStore SF pretty much had the Warlock be the MVP. Did so much heavy lifting, outlasted 1.5 classes, and gave him a significant edge to the point where Priest had to play a card and win the game, which was the Shadow Word Death on the Blood of the Ancient one. Forced the Cave to all in because they had really no other backup game plan.
All right, well, we are into game number 2 here, and the Cave sticking with the Jungle Giants plan.
Yeah, and it could be the fact that the Cave might feel like they were unlucky, and I do feel like a part of it was how they drew. They did have the Jungle Giants completed, and they did have Barnabas, but they kept hitting you know, their Gluttonous Oozes, their Tortolan Foragers. Those aren't the cards you want to be hitting with your zero-cost minions.
And RazerStore, though, also keeping the same strategy. They opened with Shaman last time, opening with Shaman now. I wonder how much of that is potentially trying to play around the Mage, and how much is just the powerful early game of Shaman. We saw Tunnel Trog into Totem Golem do a ton of work last game, and, well, here it is again.
Yeah, and I believe that Shaman is probably the second most versatile class out of these 9, followed by Mage. Or, sorry, preceded by Mage. Mage is, of course, a lot of people's public enemy, but yet neither teams have really picked it because it hasn't fit with their strategy. The Cave is going for a more minion-centric approach, and RazerStore just seems to be playing solid decks and then countering what their opponents are doing in a traditional Hearthstone tournament.
Yeah, and we see the early game power that really pushed the Cave largely out of the game last time very quickly with the turn 1 Tunnel Trog. The Forager, though, this is a card that the Cave was missing in the early turns of the previous game, so this gives them a little bit of resilience to help interact with the board early on.
I'm looking for any elementals in the Druid deck list, and I don't think I see any. It's primarily beasts. It seems to be the main synergy tribe there, so it doesn't seem like an Kalamos has an actual way to activate. It's a little unfortunate, I guess, because I wanted to see some cool fireworks.
RazerStore to even play, oh, they're actually going to go with Primal Fin Totem here into Lightning Bolt. So they decide that they want to overload themselves for the next turn, which means they can play a Totem Golem alongside the Murlocs they'll be getting from the Primal Fin, and just utilize their overall mana more effectively because they get overloaded into a turn they have a good 2 to play anyway.
That's right. And also increases their options, too, with Flame Tongue Totem.
It's true.
Because of the Murloc token that gets spawned from the Primal Fin. So this is a very good, that was a very, very good play, and almost kind of shockingly obvious in hindsight. And that's why RazerStore, they are definitely one of the top teams here for the Taverns.
Yeah, RazerStore, interestingly, they have 3 pretty high-level competitive players on their squad. And one of them, Shoop, he is not only a DreamHack champion himself, he also used to play at the Cave when he used to live on the East Coast.
That's right.
So he's kind of representing both of these taverns. These must be pretty great places to have a player like him deciding to make his home.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, so he's got kind of like interest on both sides in the sense it's like, I guess if the Cave wins, at least his old friends used to win, so he'll be happy for them. But of course, he's playing on behalf of San Francisco. That's how he actually connected to a lot of his friends. He said that when he moved for his job, he wasn't sure exactly how he'd be able to handle the transition. But he said hanging out with the local fireside, playing with his friends, and also now competing with them on BlizzCon stage, it's definitely been a way to help Matt.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many people who are able to find lifelong friendships through gaming, and the Tavern opportunities to play with other competitors is a great opportunity for exactly that. The Cave, though, not a great opportunity for them this turn. They find nothing, and can only hero power on their turn 4.
It's tough. It's tough. And this is, again, we mentioned it in the very beginning of the last game, and we'll mention it again. Even though I didn't really understand the strategy at first, and we picked it up along the way, that they want to power load the back end, the class number 2 and 3, it does feel like Druid can backfire significantly. If all you do is play your first class for a quest, it feels like your second and third classes have to go extremely well in order to make up for that deficit.
You have to have a lot of power coming out of the third quest when you finally do complete that Jungle Giants here.
And if you're a RazerStore, do you even extend them to the board? Or do you just hero power and try to threaten your opponent that way?
It is an interesting decision for RazerStore whether they want to commit any more of these cards, because if you are, again, just joining us, this is a very unique format. This is not one where you see lethal, you go for it. These players are competing essentially best of 3 lives in this format. And RazerStore deciding, okay, well, do we want to commit anything else, or do we want to just save more cards in our hand for when our board will be cleared when we ultimately do kill our opponent?
Yeah, I think the attack onto the Flame Tongue Totem was probably telling of what was coming. They said if they have Starfall, we need to be able to react to it. And this does set up a lethal if they do Star. Actually, they had the Starfall lethal set up either way because the Tunnel Trog would survive.
I think that's true.
That is true.
So I think that the Cave actually may just want to commit a minion to advance their quest here.
Oh, no, I apologize. The Flame Tongue Totem would die, so it loses power,
yes.
so that they don't have to. So even if the Overload came on the other side, it wouldn't come out. So it's a proper setup.
Right. So RazerStore trying to ensure that even through the AoE, they're able to end the game. The Cave, though, all right, well, they're going to go ahead and get another tick on their Jungle Giants here.
They know what's happening here. They're pretty much dead. And RazerStore will close it out, and they picked up Hex, which is actually very valuable if the Cave ends up picking up another power class, like Priest, or maybe Druid again.
we see the crazy moment of lethal when, boom, everything goes away. And now the Cave has the opportunity to pick a new class.
Interesting. So Mage is primarily...
we see a shake of the head. They do not look happy with these options.
Mage is primarily spell-based. Hunter is quest-based, so a 1-mana minion does not really have 5 attack very often. And then Shaman, as we know, is very token-based as well. So this is a kind of a struggle.
This is a very poor selection of classes for specifically their plan of trying to advance the Jungle Giants quest. The Shaman class, and I think a big part of why we saw them shaking their head, does not have very many big minions. We do see the Thing from Below picked up. So here they are going to be pretty low on ability to actually advance this quest for their final life, which is, as it seems, essentially their plan.
They only have 2 minions in their entire deck, and you see one of them being drawn, Thing from Below. The second minion is the other copy of it.
Well, though if they do find the other Thing from Below, that's exactly the situation they want to be in, which is at exactly 4 completion on the Druid quest in order to get Barnabas in their very last life.
Yeah, and this is why I believe, well, I do believe Shaman is, again, one of the most versatile classes, and it's primarily because you can threaten without having to extend on the board simply by hero powering. Every single totem in its own right can be a potential threat because of Flame Tongue, because of Thunderbluff Valiant, which when you inspire gains +2 attack permanently to each of your totems. So I really like Shaman, even if the Cave has really bad options.
And speaking of totems, the Cave developing 3 of them this turn, which makes that Thunderbluff Valiant in their hand very, very scary. If they Thunderbluff Valiant, hero power, they can push a lot of damage next turn. So I think RazerStore SF is deciding whether they may even just fire off a Lightning Storm just on this board. They don't really have many great options of their own.
They could. They can also get greedy and wait. You know, they're only taking 4 damage. And if you do end up clearing, yeah, you're right now, true. You do have a little bit of life to play with in the very beginning because you heal for 5. It's
true.
And you didn't even get the spell damage totem, so maybe you can try and wait for a turn. You don't really have very good substantial follow-up to Lightning Storm anyways. Try for the Wrath of Air totem again next turn.
Yep. All right, well, it looks like a great Thunderbluff Valiant opportunity for the Cave here. They'll get a buff on 4 separate totems.
Yeah, this, you can't really patch this up if you're the Cave. You're behind, you have to make a power play. This is one of those power plays. But you are committing a lot to the board like we were talking about.
And yeah, the Cave decides they want to use their Wrath of Air totem to clear off the Searing totem on the opposing side of the board to prevent a Lightning Storm, for instance, from actually clearing them.
Hex Lightning Storm, Thing from Below. That can potentially clear the entire board and reset everything if RazerStore can land a very crucial 3 damage Lightning Storm, preferably on this Flame Tongue totem. If they don't land on the Vitality totem, not a big deal. But the Flame Tongue totem is a very important thing.
And it goes down. So just the Vitality totem left on the board for the Cave here. And again, this is very crucial for how the players manage their resources, especially the ones who are looking to close out this particular life, because you don't want to commit too much to the board in order to have that cleared when there is the reset when a new class is chosen.
Yeah, I didn't actually pay too close attention to time to the Cave's hand. They have a Lightning Bolt, so it's not nearly as important, and because of the permanent buff from the Thunderbluff Valiant, they have a removal. So they don't get to stick this 5-5, but still, RazerStore SF fought back from a position where you should normally lose. If you have Flame Tongue and Thunderbluff Valiant and it sticks for more than a turn, that's often just game over. And if you need any proof, go in Time Machine to a year ago to the Karazhan meta and talk to me again.
And now RazerStore, though, they are overloaded from their Storm last turn, which means they have few options here. And I think they're going to try to see what they can do to exhaust as much of the Cave's resources as possible. It looks like, for them, it is very unlikely they can salvage this particular life, given the resources at their disposal.
Yeah, the really unfortunate thing, though, is, again, they use their Lightning Storm, and you know they do have another copy in their deck, but it's looking like they're going to take a lot of big punish, and the Cave has even better follow-up here. They have 6 on board, plus the 4 with Flame Tongue, plus a Lightning Storm, so that's 12. I guess the caveat is that RazerStore right now is just, this is all icing on the cake. They're just draining Shaman of more resources.
Right. Yeah, their entire goal is to just try to get to the next life with the Cave having as little left in the tank as possible.
And this is a play, I think, exactly for that. Force your opponent to double trade. Anytime you can 2-for-1 or just get value in general, maybe even 1.5 cards, you're putting the Shaman further behind. That is one of the weaknesses I noticed from this deck list. They have one source of card draw, and that is a single Mana-Tide totem. So if the Cave ends up having to use Thing from Below and Flame Tongue totem, and perhaps even this Lightning Storm in some capacity, they're pretty much just going to be playing totems and hoping they get Allocator.
And actually a little bit of a positioning issue with their keys on Mystic here, unable to get the Flame Tongue on the Mystic as well as, I guess you couldn't get it on both additional things.
They missed a little damage.
Yeah, they do miss a little bit. If they had the Mystic to the left of the totem, they could have gotten both buffed by the totem here.
Yeah. I mean, missing 2 damage here actually means a little bit more because of the 20 health cap. So
right.
It's definitely a big deal.
They do still get the trade with the Mystic, though, and putting RazerStore down to just 10 life.
You could tell they're just even hesitant to extend even further. In most Shaman Mirrors, by all means, your opponent uses a Lightning Storm, play the Primal from Totem, but they're hesitant because they're thinking, oh man, if this doesn't end the game, we have to commit even more. We're going to be in trouble for the follow-up.
Totemic Might number 2 comes into the hand for RazerStore.
Why didn't anyone put the Gadsden Auctioneer in the Shaman deck?
So very mighty, these totems. So very mighty.
5, 7, 8. There is lethal available for the cave, but they have to toss the Lightning Storm in order to do that. And that's also only if RazerStore chooses to just pass. If Vitality Totem heals, then the cave has to commit even more. And that's also assuming that RazerStore, doesn't get a Taunt Totem.
If it's a Taunt Totem here, the Vitality Totem into double Totemic Might Primal Fusion could be pretty sweet.
That's so
funny. Just get a gigantic taunt, but no,
Yeah.
it is a healing stream totem. So RazerStore, all right, they're just gonna go ahead and pass it back.
Yeah, and if I'm the cave, I think I'm going to play with as much resource as possible. Your opponent drawing a card is not nearly as important as you drawing a card. They're going to lose their hand, pick a new class, and reset their health, but you're stuck with your hand. So I don't think I'm going to be in a rush to end my opponent, even though, again, there is the lethal opportunity here for Cave to kill the RazerStore Shaman.
Yeah, they're going to commit a Totem Golem as well.
Okay. It's definitely a risk, and it could be the fact that RazerStore has been just passing with a lot of mana.
It's true.
If you are the losing player, you normally want to commit everything you can.
Yes.
And so maybe they're feeling like there's a strong possibility of a second Lightning Storm. So in that event, we need to make sure that we're constantly given the option to kill our opponent.
Thing from below here, Hero Power plus Thing from below.
And
Primal Fusion, Vitality
Just
Totem.
play everything.
What
happens?
Put a lot in the way. I don't think it does enough because of the Flame Tongue Totem in particular to actually stop the cave here. There's only 2 totems for the Primal Fusions. They don't play anything.
Yeah, that is a little interesting considering that you might as well try, because it's 6 health from the Totemic Mites, the 2 and the Primal Fusion. So then the thing from below would be at least at 11 health plus a potential Taunt Totem, so that's 13 health, and your opponent has 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, plus. Oh, but then the slide in from the Flame Totem gives them an extra 2, 4, 6, 8. So they would still cover them anyways.
I wonder if the cave here is actually debating whether they want to kill them at all, whether they would rather just say go and get another opportunity to just draw an additional card. Because every turn that goes by, the cave draws a card. That is a card that persists to their next life. RazerStore, their cards are no longer persistent. Once they die, they lose their hand.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a very, very unusual format in terms of figuring out exactly.
Yeah, RazerStore, if they get a Taunt Totem, I forgot that it becomes a 0/6. So actually, you can't trade and get the Flame Tongue slide, and so I'm actually calculating wrong.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I actually have to see it. It's a little bit complicated board combat math. All right, if you're gonna lose, I still do believe tossing everything out here. Might as well.
And now RazerStore, they realize the cave has a plan, which is to try to extend this out as long as they can. So now, I think potentially what RazerStore was doing was trying to just get the cave to end the game and prevent them from getting more resources.
Right.
Just to be like, okay, kill me.
Just concede.
But now they also are potentially saving up enough cards that they can kind of have a counter push. That if they play, Hero Power, Thunderbluff Vitality, Hero Power, Thing from below, Totemic Might, Primal Fusion. This is suddenly a bunch of stuff that's hitting board right away.
Hey, this is a Taunt Totem. That's super huge.
It is.
Oh my goodness. That's a big swing. And now the cave has to use their Lightning Storm in order to get through this.
Totemic Might. We have seen Totemic Might and the Ancient One already in this Tavern versus Tavern final here.
Unironically making big plays.
That is a 4/8 Stoneclaw totem. That's not a Stoneclaw totem, that's a Boulder totem.
Yeah, no, 4/8 taunt is like, it's kind of better than the Lakari Fellhound if you think about it. No downside.
Can they push through without expending any more resources?
I feel like they can. If they trade a minion, Lightning Storm, they should be able to get through most of it, right?
That does require them to use their Lightning
They have
Storm.
Alakir now.
Well, I was saying without actually expending more
without
resources.
expending more
is
resources?
that possible?
I don't think so.
I
They have the
think
Lightning
they have
Storm.
the Lightning Storm, and this allowed the Cave to pick up one more card, but did force them to use their Lightning Storm, which also overloads them into their next life, or rather into the next turn, while the RazerStore.
Oh, they're playing a Dragon's out again.
Okay, they're still trying to just dig for more.
Now, this is really smart, too, because they recognize that RazerStore has caught on to their plan, which is to drag the game out as long as possible. RazerStore doesn't have a way to damage themselves. This is actually a reason why maybe Mage and Druid are also good in Rogue.
Yeah.
Because you can end the round when you want. You can choose to kill yourself. Shaman has no way to guarantee themselves to die at this point, and the Cave is just going to stack more cards. And they have some of their best cards in their hand, too.
I wonder how many people have just shouted Mist Lethal every single turn.
Millions.
But you're supposed to miss lethal in these spots.
Or do you mean in general in Hearthstone? Billions.
I'm saying like right now, over the course of this game, oh my god, lethal, why?
People walking by the stage, wow, these players are awful. What the heck? They just miss lethal again. I'm better than I could be playing on the Tavern vs. Tavern finals.
Yeah, the Cave, though, they are just accumulating resources for their next life. RazerStore cannot end the game on their own.
This is also very clever and quite the loophole, actually. You know, if you're Shaman, how did you want to end the game? This actually makes me reevaluate the versatility rankings a little bit. I forgot about the scenario where you're out of cards and unable to end the round, and your opponent just keeps drawing.
Do they have? I think they have a lightning bolt. They can potentially lightning bolt themselves. That's the only real out that they have to get to the next life.
Another interesting possible scenario here is that if RazerStore ends up finding a way to Lightning Storm clear, for example, yeah, RazerStore, by the way, they don't know what to do. They're
just sit here, all right, I guess we just say go again.
Like, congrats, I think you found a really good
And this is the sort of thing that I love about formats like this, because it gives players who take a creative approach to finding the little things that matter. You know, it's like, all right, well, the goal is to kill your opponent's 3 classes, but you don't just have to do it. You have to set yourself up to win in 3. Rather than just win each one individually. Oh, the lightning bolt from RazerStore. Will they bolt themselves? Will they find lethal to end the game? I think they are.
Here's the thing, though. If you bolt yourself, you also give your opponent the initiative immediately, too. So then...
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, so, this is brilliant. I love it.
Right. So normally the advantage of losing your class is that, or the silver lining, rather, is that you get to play all of your 10 mana immediately and respond to how your opponent just killed you. Now you're going to start with a new class, and your opponent gets 10 mana to start developing against you. So now you're back in the driver's seat. So you have to pick a class that's very good at reacting. You can't just take a proactive class like you normally want.
I really feel like there is a popular meme that is very appropriate to this particular game.
How long can this go on? Card names. Oh, okay.
How long can this go on? We're just sitting here with lethal, way more than lethal on board every single turn. And it's a matter of, okay, well, RazerStore is trying to figure out, is it worse for them to just get a full hand, or is it worse for us if they just get to go first in the new life?
I'm like 90% convinced that maybe RazerStore wants to wait even longer and then like force the Cave to have 10 cards and then kind of be awkward. They are. See, now the reason why I say this is because they have a player on the team named Rage, and Rage loves fatigue decks. And fatigue players tend to think one way. How do I get my opponent to lose the game in 50 turns from now?
And look at this, because of the 0 mana thing from Below's, even though they had no mana to work with on the Cave's turn, they were able to develop 10/10 worth of stats.
You mentioned the creativity coming out from the Cave, which we should have expected, considering that Cave is in creativity, the word itself. RazerStore picks up the Priest, a very good reactive class. Dragonfire Potion, of course, being one of those cards. Do they feel like they need to use it, though? They could be greedy and wait a turn. It is the most powerful AoE card available to them against Shaman.
But they also have Kazakus. I mean, the Dragonfire followed up by Kazakus has got to be pretty attractive, because you can set yourself up with a 10 mana potion immediately. The Cave can be a little clap. Yeah. All right, fine. You answered our 0 mana turn.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it almost feels like they didn't have the downside of losing their proactive turn. And if I'm RazerStore SF, I have a Prophet Valen. I'm starting to think if maybe I want to find a lesser potion on top of it, but at the same time, 5 and 10 are such high value.
10's a big number. It's the biggest number available.
That is true. Do want to point out, by the way, cards like Eternal Servitude work throughout the entire duration since you began with your first class. So even though we see Priest right now, Eternal Servitude won't give you 2 options with Kazakus and, say, Stalag and Prophet Valen. It will give you options even to the Shaman class that you played. Right. Same thing with Kazakus Revive.
There could just be a totem in there.
It's true. It could just be totems.
It is not so impressive, given that your last life was a Shaman.
So Eternal this is what kind of also makes Priest sometimes a little bit awkward as a second or third class choice, because of its Eternal Servitude and its wonkiness.
Well, now the Cave, they're only on their second life as well, so they still have that Jungle Giants waiting for their third life, and they're trying to figure out exactly how to best navigate through this Priest. And frankly, they've done a very good job of getting to this point with a lot of resources left, thanks to the way that they handled that last game.
I'm kind of wondering why Stormwatcher is in this deck. I was looking maybe for elemental synergies, or is there a Corpse Taker perhaps? I think that's just a Stormwatcher.
It's just there.
It's just a 7-mana minion.
You put a Flame Tongue Totem next to that, it attacks for a lot of damage.
Thinking who built these deck lists? I think it was the Fireside Gathering team who've been working night and day about this feature. Definitely a shout out to them. It's one of the coolest things I've seen in Hearthstone. Spirit Slinger Umbra, that is the card that specifically combos really well with Sylvanas, especially in those Anaconda scenarios against Brian Kibler 2 days before BlizzCon.
Yeah, and then I even got an Ancient one to play, and you could steal that too.
I know. It was awesome, because it triggers a death battle. It didn't kill Sylvanas, so I got two steals.
All right, well, Kazakus pushing for 10 here from RazerStore. They would have loved to have had AoE there. They find some powerful stuff, though.
No, this is incredibly powerful, because one of the struggles we talk about for these decks is resources, and Lyra is a way to generate those resources very easily. So the Cave has the Hex, but they also have the ability to play a little cheeky here, just go slower. You know, your opponent used a Silence, for example, so maybe you could just play a little defensive with this Spirit Wolf and then Mana Tide Totem as well.
Yep, trying to figure out how best to answer these threats from RazerStore as well as get on the offensive themselves.
The only thing is that you know that there's such high priority things that you want to hex. There's Sylvanas in the deck, there's Prophet Valen, there's the, things that come off from N'Zoth. Confessor Paletress can also be a threat in its own. There's even a Raza in here, by the way, as you guys couldn't tell with the Kazakus. There is no Shadow Reaper Anduin. We do not feel like giving auto wins to any of these taverns.
All right, well, they're actually going to take a value trade on the Kazakus, it looks like. Oh, no, they have changed their mind. Yeah. Face it is.
Yes, it's the best play, I think, here. Mana Tide and Hex. I was thinking that you could maybe hold back the Hex if you want to be greedy. Second Stormwatcher comes in the hand, by the way. But I definitely think Mana Tide was going down that turn no matter what.
RazerStore, though, they are picking up a lot of value. Jeez. Devour Mind as well.
Gosh. By the way, add the Hex Frog to the revival pool if it dies. Which
Eternal Servitude. Looking a little less powerful, but there is Stalag there. Speaking of death effects, Fugan is waiting in the deck as well.
Yeah, Fugan was played in the previous game, or was it Stalag that was played in the previous game as well? And you have Spirit Slinger.
Oh, the previous game, not actual game, not life.
Yeah. The way I've been noting is rounds, right? Or
sure.
you're at round 1, 2, 3, or life 1, 2, 3. But the previous game.
Yes.
Or set, whatever you want to say. We're going to have to figure out, we're going to nail down this terminology before we do this again, by the way. You can have Spirit Slinger Umbra and then summon Thaddeus.
Right away.
Number 1.
Yes.
And then you can get another one with the Stalag dying the second time. That is not available to them right now because Fugan hasn't been made available.
All right.
Interesting play here. Seems like RazerStore is throwing Prophet Valen into the mix for tempo. Also improves their Eternal Servitude pool. Plus, they have no AoE anyways, so it's not like Prophet Valen's being saved for anything specifically. I like it, now that I take a chance to evaluate it, because everything else seemed subpar, to say the least.
Well, if the Cave can find spell power. That Spirit Claws and Lightning Storm both look pretty juicy to potentially even just clear off the Velen by themselves. They do have the Alec here as well, but not quite enough to easily kill the Velen without losing some powerful resources of their own.
Yeah, and if I'm the Cave, again, this is kind of like to the point where you need to equalize, because if you if you're able to get his win against the Priest, that would be massive to swing momentum back on your side. Because don't forget, the entire strategy for the Cave has been on hold. There's no possible way for Shaman, at least from what I know, there's no possible way for Shaman to finish the Jungle Giants quest.
Right, they are out of five attack minions. Yeah. They're actually going to fire it off without rolling for a totem.
They can they can double trade, but they keep a Stormwatcher in play.
True. If they had rolled 3 on the Prophet Valen, they would have been able to clear it off with just the Stormwatcher. But they do still end up with a 4-8 win fear, and you know, we harp on it all the time in a lot of matches. 4 attack minions against Priest can be a real problem.
This is pretty scary too. The Cave might actually be able to sneak a win. If they sneak a win, they're in the huge lead at that point.
All right, it is Lyra time.
Spirit Lash clears off one of the minions. Looking for any way to silence. Oh, Mind Blast is interesting. Oh, they just played their Valen.
Not making a ton of progress with this Lyra here.
I'm actually realizing that if the Cave picks up Flame Tongue Totem.
That is, as we said, a lot of damage with these Wind Fury minions. Now you know why Stormwatcher's in the deck, Frodan.
Oh, cute. The Manatite Totem draws me a card as well, and they got Fugan. There you go. Oh man, this is tough. If I'm the Cave, I'm starting to contemplate no longer trying to be resource conservative here. I think I'm just going to consider going all in soon. Does that mean you play Alakir this turn? Probably not, considering the threat of considering the power of Flame Tongue pickup and maybe ending the game there. But I'm considering it if I don't pick up the next turn.
Ooh, there's spell power. That does turn on the Spirit Claws.
Yeah, I like this Totemic Might as well. Make yourself resilient to any potential card that Lyra picked up, like a Holy Nova, to ruin the board.
Yeah, the Excavated Evil, actually, that they did pick up.
Yeah.
Does protect their Manatite Totem here, so able to continue generating resources here. Ooh, and Thunder Bluff. That's more totemic power waiting for the Cave next turn.
Yeah. Wow, at least the Trailblazer. Too much value. RazerStore has so many ways to get cards from their opponents. They have Thoughtsteel. They have at least the Trailblazer as an extra card in Nagoro pack. They also have Devour Mind.
Are they playing the Excavated Treasures deck that steal your opponent's stuff?
Maybe the big-time Buccaneers Excavated Treasures deck. Now, this is looking pretty bad, and they've used a significant amount of their AoE as well. I think the Cave may have robbed RazerStore of the momentum here. I think they're commandingly in the lead at this point.
Yeah, and this is particularly important because the Cave did really sacrifice a lot of power with their first round Druid pick in order to shore up their back end on their third life. And if they're able to go in with a lead, taking down RazerStore's second life, it's a huge advantage to them.
And this is what we're talking about too. Shaman, in my opinion, is very versatile, and the only downside is that one of the largest downsides is the lack of card draw. But Manatite Totem's been drawing.
Oh, they do not find anything powerful. Prophet Valen would have been fantastic. Could have excavated the entire board away.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. The Cave's been able to draw so much out this Manatite Totem, so they'll have even more gas. This is definitely a lethal opportunity.
I believe they're actually one off without committing any additional resources, though.
Right, but I don't know. I might take it just because I have a guaranteed. Well, your opponent didn't have a very good play, but still, you're softening up your board a little bit. Your opponent went fishing for Prophet Valen very clearly at the last second, so they must have some kind of AoE there. Maybe another Spirit Lash, a Holy Nova, the Excavated Evil that they're knowing about. If I'm the Cave, I'm putting them on AoE. I don't want to give Priest any chance to take this game back away from me.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough spot to try and figure out, well, is it worth just pushing for the life win right now, but having to commit something else? Or can they potentially push enough damage that they are more or less guaranteed to be able to push it next turn? It looks like they're going for the win right now.
It's hard to say because I actually think Thunderbolt Valiant has much better scaling possibilities than the Alakir.
Yeah.
Because Alakir is just more of the burst. but
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
All right, well, we do see the reset, and it is Warrior, Rogue, and Paladin that are offered to RazerStore. We have not yet seen 2 of these classes, I believe. We haven't seen the Warrior or Paladin yet.
So this is a little bit interesting here because Paladin normally is a natural predator to Shaman before all like the recent years of expansions gave Shaman a bunch of powerful cards because the 1/1s line up really good against the 0/2s. But there's no like consecration and AoE in the Paladin's deck. They do have a lot of great top end. They have Tyrion and Uther of the Ebon Blade. But they're pretty much like a tempo deck. So I think Rogue is the right call here.
And the goal for RazerStore here, they are looking to try and set up an Auctioneer with a full hand of spells in 10 mana to start, and they do not find it. Their hand is air.
Yeah, you need a class that has the potential to win 2 in a row here. Rogue is definitely one of those.
There's only 1 Auctioneer in this deck.
Yeah, drawing 7 cards. I might even toss in the Thanatos. Maybe I'd be tempted to because I just want to draw deeper into my deck.
I think that RazerStore, they are pretty much all in on finding that singleton copy of Auctioneer with a hand like this at this point.
Well, your opponent didn't play anything, so they all have they have reactive spells. Makes me think that Alakir is probably just going to immediately eliminate it. I'd be considering going wide here.
Yeah, looks like the cave is right on board with you.
Yeah, and I think going wide, what it does too, is kind of force Rogue to utilize his resources. It's clearly conserving and bunkering down until a key card comes in. And the more you can drain the Rogue of these really critical resources like Backstab and all those cheap Razor Petals, the better you are for your third deck, because this is all icing on the cake. The cave's already far ahead. If they get extra damage in, or maybe even drain Rogue of half their hand, that's a massive lead.
It is. And the Rogue also doesn't really have much in the way of healing. You will get the 5 life back if you do kill the cave and get to their final life, but you still have very little life to work with over the course of that final game, especially if the cave is able to find a class that goes well with Jungle Giants and can just start firing out huge monsters on the board. A lot of cheap spells for RazerStore.
and
now what they're looking for right now.
This is, again, one of the things that we're talking about. Like, saving Thanatos with a hand like this is fantastic usually because then all of a sudden you have 1 mana, your 1 mana Razor Petals become actual real cards. They can become arcane shots and things like that. But RazerStore has just kind of been struggling with the fact that they don't really have anything good right now going.
All right, they get their Deadly Poison, Leeching Poison.
All right, I think we're ready to pony up soon here. I don't know, because if you kind of hero power pass, aren't you just giving Rogue exactly the time it needs to power up too?
It does feel like the cave could stand to start pushing now with the Alakir, especially because the Alakir into that Deadly Poison Dagger will at least threaten to absorb that hit rather than your Tunnel Trog just getting eaten up.
6, so if you hero power and get the Wrath of Air Totem, you have 6 damage with Alakir plus the 4 on, so you put 10 out, your opponent can gain 3 back. So they'd be at 9 life, and then you have lethal the next turn if they can't answer, because then they use just Backstab and 2 of their removal cards. And you know Razor Petal is in their hand. So it seems like it's safe. The Blade-Mace Thanatos, of course, complicates things.
Well, they're just going in. Not even a hero power at all. They just want to push the damage right now.
Oh, you know what it is? Is RazerStore? Or you know what it might be? RazerStore is saving up all these resources. Cave wondered that maybe they have a lethal opportunity. They have like Eviscerates and Sinister Strikes and Razor Petal volleys. That could have actually ended up death.
And this puts RazerStore just 4 life. Yeah. Not very much life to work with here at all.
Yeah, they're technically alive, but just barely.
Up to 4 from the lifesteal.
Cave needs 1 overload.
Any damage.
And there it is.
That's going to do it.
Wow. The Cave able to destroy with Shaman, taking down 3 classes. And again, this is why it's a very powerful class in this format. The Cave strikes back, and we're going to go to the rubber match to decide who is going to be our Tavern champion.
And this has been truly epic. Both of these games so far have really gone the distance, and we've seen a lot of really interesting strategies come to bear.
And it's an adaptation of tactics, too. You know, that quest never got finished. They might as well have not played really much Druid there. They pretty much played the quest and then went to their next class. That's actually what just happened there. RazerStore are trying to keep their spirits pretty high, but what's interesting is, you know, maybe the strategy of going for the Druid quest isn't even as necessary as the Cave thought it might be.
Yeah, we have seen the Shaman just be so powerful in these games, and the backup plan of the Druid, though, is just so strong. We'll see if it goes in the final game.
2 games in, we have a tied series, and when we come back, we will find out who will be the winner of our Tavern vs. Tavern finals.
The 2017 Hearthstone Invitational is brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Two teams have made it here to BlizzCon, trekking across the country, East Coast versus West Coast of the United States of America. The Cave from Fairfax, Virginia, the RazerStore from San Francisco. One more game before we find out who's going to take home the championship crown.
But if any of the previous games are an indication, this one more game still will be an epic one. We are already an hour and a half into this match, and we still have a game left to go.
It's been some pretty interesting stuff. It's definitely a little bit exhausting from the perspective of the players. They've been standing the entire time. I'd probably be asking for a chair or something. Maybe a stool, rocking chair, sleeping bag, I don't know.
Pillow.
At least more ergonomic carpets there.
we have seen both teams stick with similar strategies in the first 2 games. And the early game has gone similarly. It has been the RazerStore Shaman, Cave Druid. They are not changing their strategy whatsoever, and we're seeing exactly the same opening from each team.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're really pivoting from their strategies very much. Now, RazerStore again. If there's any affirmation that Shaman's a great versatile lead, I think they just got it. It just swept them And perhaps they are going to be able to use that momentum on their side. The Cave going to stick with the Jungle Giants, and maybe we can finally see the execution of their strategy. They've had a lot of chances so far.
Well, crucially, RazerStore does not have nearly as powerful an opening as they had in the previous games. There is no Tunnel Trog in their opening hand, which both the previous games put so much pressure on the Cave. And we see that was a mistake.
Yeah.
As Jungle Giants comes down, RazerStore knows this is going to be a tougher game than their previous openings.
Or is it? I mean, if you don't have the Tunnel Trog, fine. But double Totem Golem back-to-back is pretty devastating as well.
It is still very powerful. And the Nourish picked up for the Cave, speaking of powerful, that mana that they gain persists to future lives as well.
Right.
So even if they are going to die, they have a number of things they can do that will give them value in their future lives. They can advance their quest. They can ramp their mana.
I can see that. So maybe Druids as a lead isn't that bad then, because I didn't really account for the ramp thing since it hasn't been as big of a factor as it could be.
I believe there is just Nourish in their deck. There's 2 copies of Nourish, no other ramp. But without the very aggressive draw, the Cave could have the time to get to that Nourish and improve their chances in future lives.
Yep, as mentioned before, but if you're tuning in halfway through, the low end of the Druid deck is just pretty much the Quest and Tortillon Forager. Everything else is starting to become expensive minions with the exception of the Feral Rage.
Cave going to coin out an Elder Longneck. They want to answer this Totem Golem as efficiently as possible. Divine Shield instantly picked.
Oh my goodness. And they don't have enough mana for the Feral Spirits. And if you play like Primal Totem, it just gets hero power down. This is a very risky play from the Cave, but it ended up working out okay. Works out great, actually.
Yeah, this is a very, very strong opening from the Cave, especially considering what we've seen in previous games. We basically saw the Cave get run over on their Druid deck in each of the previous games, while RazerStore had really powerful openings. Now it is the Cave who may even look to be in the driver's seat of this game, as crazy as it is, given the high end of this deck.
Well, let's not get run away. Let's not get carried away too quickly, because the RazerStore still has very good plays on curve. You know, they have the Feral Spirits next turn, they have Primal Totem plus hero power, and the thing from below gets really cheap. Still have a lot left to play in this game of Hearthstone. It's funny because we're talking about how long the game's lasted, but you know, it's still also relatively quick in terms of how fast you can die if you're not careful.
Yeah, you only start with 20 life in this particular game mode, so the aggressive openings from the Shaman deck are that much more potent. The Cave has managed to stave off the early aggression, though, thanks to the Divine Shield on the long neck. Interesting position for RazerStore right now. The Feral Spirit is their play. They decide they're going to go ahead and just protect their Totem Golem here. And now the Cave has some interesting options. Do they want to try to play more to this life by taunting up their Shell Shifters, or do they want to Shell Shifter up and advance their quest for future lives?
Having like more revelation about how the quest interacts with some of those 5 attack minions, it's because it's another like transform versus give a minion as a battle cry.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see that dichotomy split the difference there, because Van Cleef again doesn't buff the quest, but Shell Shifter does, and that's because of the transform. And you'd still go for the transform even though it's like weaker against the board immediately, right?
Either version is a transform of sorts, but there's the 5/3 stealth or 3/5 taunt they could go with here. I would suspect there's a good chance they go with the stealth, in part because the taunt kind of dies to the board, still leaving the Totem Golem up, as well as the fact that the 5/3 does advance your quest, which is clearly a major part of their strategy.
I mean, you could play it as a 3/5 taunt as well, but I kind of agree with you.
They're taunting up.
Oh, interesting.
This does allow them to potentially nourish for crystals next turn, hero power down the Totem Golem, if that is the line that RazerStore takes. If they just attack both in, they're able to ramp up, which is both valuable now as well as persisting through future lives, as well as fight for the board with that 2 mana crystals they get. Assuming, of course, there is no healing or taunt totem off of RazerStore's hero power.
I like it. I like it because it also gets you closer to getting some of these other clunkier cards out of your hand. Because if you're trying to make progress with the Druid quest, after, well, this turn, you're pretty much going to be playing a lot of smaller minions and drawing whatever you have and then not playing Blood of the Ancient One or Tarantus. Your opponent also has just proven that he doesn't have Flame Tongue Totem in the hand. It would have been a very easy trade proactively for the Shaman. So maybe you're not nearly as afraid as that Primal Fin Totem.
Yeah, Nourish for Crystals does exactly as we surmised, takes down the Totem Golem. And now, RazerStore is in a rough spot. They're getting into the later turns of the game, or at least the later mana stage of the game for the Cave, and that's where that deck is at its most powerful by far.
Yeah, this is a really powerful scenario though for RazerStore. Thunderbolt Valiant is not easy to deal with. Druid already has a hard time removing things, and especially in this format where they pretty much have no hard removal. And instead are just going to play smaller minions to try and get the buff, quest buff, except the Celestial Dreamer doesn't actually add to the quest.
It's very sad.
It's sad, and
I know it used to.
Very confusing.
I know it used to. I played that quest before, but
I'm agreeing with you.
I think this is part of the checks when change that came with the Wild Pyromancer plus Resurrect kind
Toast
of
was telling me he was worried he didn't know have YouTube content for a week, and I'm like, well, I think I just found you something.
There it is. Comes into play, I guess, and then checks. I'm not really totally sure.
Form of dragon.
Well, in this case, the quest checks before the Battlecry goes on.
Right.
That's it.
I suppose that's how it is, yeah.
For a long time, there's a theory about Battlecries resolving before the minion comes into play, but then that was also debunked by a couple of sequencing experiments as well. A lot of science that goes into Hearthstone.
There is. And now RazerStore, they want to try to, as we have mentioned many times throughout this finals here, try to close out the game without exhausting as many resources as they can. They want to try to clear out the Cave's life without having to use too many of the cards in hand. Because if the Cave does get more time, they will get more quest progress, potentially. Well, I guess at this point, more mana ramp doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, well, one of the dangers and part of a large reason why their opponents were able to win and sweep last game was because RazerStore had no cards with the Shaman and they couldn't threaten.
Right.
And then the Cave just drew 4 cards or 5 cards and was able to essentially reset everything. Their life total didn't nearly as matter as the board position. And so if RazerStore puts himself in a similar position where they win the game they all in too early, the Cave will just do it right back to them. And all their early lead will mean nothing.
All right, well, they are just pushing for damage here, it looks like. Getting the Cave down to just 6. They are going to throw in an Eater of Secrets. Pretty low impact card in most matchups anyway.
Right.
There's an Ancient One.
But
waiting. Just waiting.
Wow, they drew all of their expensive cards, but not in time for, like, they kind of want that later on. Right now they want cheaper things to play to get this quest counter up. A very common combination with this was Menagerie Warden with Stranglethorn Tiger, but that's not in this deck.
There is the possibility that they can clear off the Thunderbluff Valiant. They can attack into the Totem and then attack into the Valiant. I don't think they can possibly live, though. If they do play their Shell Shifter, is there enough damage on the opposing side? They Hero Power attack into the Valiant. They end up at exactly 1. The Shell Shifter has 5 health, and there'd still be more than 5 attack on the board. So I think the Cave it has essentially lost this particular life and just need to figure out how to maximize the value they get going to the next one.
Yeah.
Just play Blood of the Ancient One.
Looks like they're giving up on that.
So Blood of the Ancient One, by playing Blood of the Ancient One here, it kind of amusingly leaves them in a position where if they do get, say, Priest in a future life, they can resurrect it.
Oh, interesting.
You add the biggest possible thing to your resurrect pool in case you end up as Priest.
How do you get the second one? Or you just want it for the 8/8?
Well, you just want a giant monster, and then maybe you can somehow resurrect another one.
Sure.
You could Lyra into another Eternal Servitude. I mean, a 9/9's pretty good. You don't necessarily need a 30/30, even if you really want one.
RazerStore has the option of holding for another turn so they can play the 0 mana thing from below as well. Once the board gets cleared, after you reset the heroes, you can play the 0 mana thing from below, but that would require you to pass for a turn.
They want
sequencing to make sure to leave no Deathbound minions behind for when the board gets cleared.
Are they debating if they want to give them another turn? That seems very dangerous against the Druid. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Yeah. We see the board will be cleared. RazerStore gets healed up, and now the options, Paladin, Rogue, and Warlock are available to the Cave.
Yeah,
and they're going to with Warlock. We mentioned this is a very strong option in this particular format because you can leverage your life total to give you an advantage to gain that cards back when the heal comes. Ooh, and then they just can start off with Cruel if they want. Boom.
Yeah, that's pretty much as good as it gets. The Warlock's an immediate crackback, usually against your opponent. As soon as they hit you down, you can refill the board and basically snipe them, considering that Shaman has full life. Downside is, if Shaman happened to rip the Hex and stabilize, you have to kind of start back over, and your hand's not nearly as good. It's got Dreadsteed. That's about it.
All right, well, there is always, of course, if they do answer your board, life tap, of course, to keep giving you fuel here. The Cruel would end up being 1 tick on the Jungle Giants as well.
Yeah, that's another reason to play it too.
All right. And big board comes out from the cave here. RazerStore has some tools left here. They are still in the weird position of the cave can just leverage the fact that the Shaman cannot really end the game itself and potentially just sit there and life tap and generate more resources before they actually end the game against RazerStore. This is the strategy we saw them employ in the last game.
Lightning strikes twice.
Yeah, the cave has has perfect answers to this. They have Blast Crystal Potion, they have Shadow Flame for really wide boards as well. Blast Crystal Potion should deal with the Stormwatcher pretty easily. I'm trying to see if they can utilize the coil pretty well. I guess they can bump into they can bump minions and use Mortal Coil on the thing from below. But overall, their options are very versatile at the moment. Looks like they really value the life total on their Lakari Bellhound. It's for good reason. It really stops things like Alec here, just dead in his tracks.
Just going to clear everything out and push some damage here. They're debating if they want to life tap here. Seems like generating additional resources while you have your opponent in a vulnerable position, and you're going to gain life back if they. Interesting. They choose not to life tap. I wonder if that's because they want to ensure they don't pick up a big demon for their Void Caller. Because if they pick up a big demon, they get Void Collared, it's possible they lose their Barnabas going into the next life. I think that's their concern, is that if they were to pick up, say, a Doom Guard, another 5-attack minion, it could force them to trigger their Jungle Giants now, and they want to save it for life number 3.
Okay. I can buy that. It's definitely something I just wasn't expecting, because life tap is just so good.
It is.
And in so many scenarios, it gives you an extra card, it gives you more resources to fight efficiently, and just choosing not to life tap there, straight up, when you have the life total and the board advantage. It actually is very surprising to me. Kind of blown away.
I wonder if they'll actually just sacrifice their Void Caller so they can life tap with impunity here.
Whoa. I mean, that is so counterintuitive.
It sounds bizarre. I'm just trying to work through what is the thought process that leads you to make this decision. And I think...
I know. It sounds cool.
PO Shadow Flame, potentially here.
Yeah, and if you...
Or just Power Overwhelm. Maybe they don't even Shadow Flame. They are. Okay.
You could just eat your Void Caller if you're so afraid of bullying out a demon.
Yeah, he could just Void... They could just Void Terror it, though... And I believe that would not trigger it because it is a Battle Cry now. Right. As we have seen. Oh, now they are tapping.
I do wish, I am a little confused in terms of their strategies for that, but it seems like they've recognized that they've largely won the board and won this round. And the Cave is going to put RazerStore SF on their last class here. Or sorry, the second class, excuse me.
All right.
Or they can actually just hold in life tap too. And they're not life tapping now. Okay.
So they're just waiting now.
Right. So what was the life tap for the previous turn, you think?
They just changed their mind.
Just because 2 cards is too few to have if the round somehow ended?
I mean, maybe now they have fewer possible demons in their deck that could trigger things. All right, well, RazerStore, they found lethal on themselves to reset.
Huh. Honestly, I'm tempted to pick Shaman again. Looks like they went for Rogue. Rogue can really capitalize on the tempo against the Warlock, considering that Warlock uses life total to life tap, and then you can get that extra damage in considering that is a more aggressive class than Shaman. I guess the AoE from Warlock's too threatening.
You see that crucially here, because they lightning bolted themselves, the mana pool clearing happened on their own turn. That means the Cave gets the first shot at spending mana and pushing their advantage against RazerStore here.
Demon Heart's a ridiculous pickup. Oh my goodness, that's going to make an 8/8 Void Terror just push 9 damage right now.
Yeah, a lot of damage here, but there is a powerful hand for RazerStore. They have the Gadgetzan Auctioneer with prep number of other spells, so they could potentially try to generate themselves a very powerful board presence.
Sure, makes sense to me here. RazerStore has to answer this immediately, and again, that is the big downside we were talking about by having to kill yourself on your turn.
Will RazerStore? I mean, they have to go for something here, because they potentially are just threatened with lethal next turn. Can they even afford to commit the Auctioneer? Do they need to just find something else to allow them to actually get a foothold against this board? The way that the Cave managed this and forced RazerStore essentially to lethal themselves just give them such a tempo advantage.
I got the best deals anywhere.
Let's see what's behind the Auctioneer. Preparation, Fan of Knives gives them the max amount of cards, or actually Mimic Pod does, technically, because it draws 2 of them. All these things aren't helpful at the moment.
Yeah, no, not at all. Keep digging, but nothing that answers this board.
They need a sacrificial pack from this Swashbuckler in order to stay alive.
What's in the box?
Wow, and what a wash here this rogue class was. It's immediate. Again, right now Cave's just executing really well, and that Demon Heart draw can't be understated, considering that RazerStore had to kill themselves. I'm actually, again, starting to question whether or not Shaman's as good as I thought it is, but then at the same time, the Cave was able to sweep it the previous game.
All right, well, Cave's going in, completing this stage here, forcing RazerStore to their final class.
Unbelievable. And this, again, they've never even needed the Quest Druid Barnabas to even finish the series.
What is their last class for RazerStore here? Priest is very powerful late in the game, as we said, and there it is. Anduin comes to the rescue, perhaps.
They can't pick something like Mage because they know that Druid's Quest is going to be such a big threat.
Right.
They have to pick Priest.
Well, I don't even know what Death Rattles died. I guess there weren't really Death Rattles in the previous games. It was a Shaman and the Rogue. There were no Death Rattle minions.
Rogue didn't even really get to play minions.
Yeah,
so
Rogue just played an Auctioneer and then died.
Rogue drew 5 cards and died.
Yep.
That was a summary of the second class. There's a complete wash for RazerStore.
Potion of Madness can steal this Dreadseed permanently if they do get to that stage.
No. And you summon 6 more Dreadseeds back with N'Zoth.
Oh my. That could be your N'Zoth. You end up locking your own board with Dreadseed.
Wow. Well, and
there's the
no, it's a Highlander deck.
It is. I know, but there's the Unlicensed Apothecary.
Does it work like that? Like if Cruel summons Unlicensed Apothecary, do you die?
You used to. I don't know if you do anymore.
Right, because the new patch.
Because of the changes.
I have not tested this interaction either.
This has not come up in any of my games.
How annoying is this Cabal Trafficker, by the way? It doesn't look like you have clean removal for it.
And no tools for the Cave to get rid of it here.
They did. They have Abyssal Enforcer and the Defile.
I believe they are specifically holding on to their Abyssal Enforcer because they don't want to get their Jungle Giants on this life.
Right. They don't want to lose it on this deck.
Right. They're specifically choosing not to activate Jungle Giants until their 3rd class, because if they just get killed here, they have no value from that card.
Speaking of value, we do have that Dreadsteed and the Potion Madness combo you were talking about, but also we have Prophet Valen in the mix, which is big burst potential. If RazerStore is able to pick up, a really powerful spell with it, like Mind Blast.
They don't have any particularly good board clear here. They can't answer both the Drake and the Wolfrid. They only really have the minion to clear off one of them. Gonna go digging with Shadow Visions, though.
There's a lot of good cards.
There's a Mind Blast. Devour Mind and Shadow Form both potentially generating resources or hero powers that persist through to the next life. They take the Mind Blast. Looks like they are trying to set something up that can just actually close out the game. And yeah, they will be stealing that Dreadsteed. It is their little pony now.
It makes sense. Just want to deny your opponent that value because it's going to stick around for a long time in the game. And if your opponent gets an eternal 1/1 to trade onto the board, it's not what you want to see. Fugan also, of course, being really annoying to deal with. Wait. Okay, now, if that trigger works, you will die straight up if that's the case.
This is the sort of thing, it's like, did you practice this? Did you play test? Do you know how these bizarre corner case interactions work?
Well, let alone 2 of them, because you're usually playing a singleton deck.
Exactly.
And then they choose their unlicensed apothecary. Bunch of dropouts make an appearance in this game. I mean, the Abyssal Enforcer looks pretty appetizing in this position.
It does, but do you want to end up committing your Jungle Giants quest now?
Right, considering that you already used your Cool.
And it has really been the strategy we have seen the Cave execute on both this and last game, is to really hold on to that and try and save it. They are in an awkward position, though, that RazerStore is playing a very powerful class with a strong end game that is generating a bunch of additional resources.
It's a class that can utilize the Barnum's effect, though. It's got life
true.
tap.
It is true.
Jeez, they really want to hold on to this quest. Oh, and also Unlicensed Apothecary also activates it, too. Oh, my goodness.
Another Mind Blast.
Wait, is that just like a lethal setup if they just do that?
It is not lethal right now. They have 10 from Valen Mind Blast plus 5 on the board.
I'm looking for an opportunity for them to maybe even save that for a combo next
It's
round,
true.
Because
They could potentially use 1 Mind Blast to close out this game and still have
Right.
Valen Mind Blast for the next one.
So Holy Nova clears everything, and then you can play Unlicensed Apothecary. And just kind of take it a little bit slow and pressure your opponent. Just dominant with your value. One of the things that happened in one of the previous games here for RazerStore is that they had all the tools necessary to win. They just didn't have the mana and the time.
Right.
Now they have a lot of time because Warlock's taking it really slow. And if a Cave is, because they're pigeonholed by their strategy to try and execute the Jungle Giants quest, they effectively are working with 1 card in their hand. So they're basically doing the same thing that the Cave did to them the previous game.
It's interesting. We see the Cave not life tapping. You know, we've seen them a number of times choose not to end up tapping to get deep into their deck. I wonder if they actually need to be tapping to get themselves potentially in range of self-lethaling, so that RazerStore can't just set up a long-term value game like we've seen before. Oh no! The Dreadsteed Apothecary. I wasn't even thinking about that.
My eyes are wide open right. I'm an Earthen Ring Farseer. Oh my goodness, I forgot about that interaction with the Dreadsteed, something at the end of the turn. And the Unlicensed Apothecary is quite the liability, to say the least.
Defile will do another 5 damage here.
Oh my goodness. And they're finishing the quest. I think the Cave just says they might have an opening at this point.
Yeah, I think that they decided, all right, we're going to try to burn you out, but RazerStore, they can close this out right now.
Yeah.
But they actually right now have to commit both of their Mind Blasts because there's 16 life for the Cave. If they play a Prophet Veil, they lose the Prophet Veil and 5 life.
Okay, we can Power Word Shield as well, right, to see if we can pick up anything else. Is there anything else that you can pick up for 1 damage? I'm trying to look at the deck list here.
And then there's still the threat of the Sneasel Shredder. If they just end the game right now, there's a legendary coming out of Sneeds.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with the. Oh, and it actually ends up being very interesting that the Cave not life tapping is actually giving them this very painful decision from RazerStore. So nice job for that to work out like that. Madame Goya is nothing. That's kind of a whiff here for the Cave.
You gotta go fire off both Mind Blasts to close out the game.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is life number 2 for the Cave, going to their final life. And they did lose their Jungle Giants, though. That was such a core element of their strategy.
Now, what's the best straight up against the Priest? You know, and it is interesting because I think they pulled the trigger recognizing that they may have opportunity with unlicensed Apothecary and Dreadsteed, but they probably got a little too antsy. Did that cost them, Kibler?
It was definitely a big cost to commit that Sneeds, that now that all of those resources they put in their first and second lives to try to set up the Jungle Giants is all for naught. Now they're just starting over on life number 3.
They were so patient for so long.
They were.
And then the turn they decided to pull it, Priest has a double Mind Blast that they're not expecting. And now RazerStore is in the driver's seat with momentum on their side. However, that is a 10 mana use, and it's a pretty decent hand.
And RazerStore did just use their Shadow Word Death.
Yeah.
A 9/9 Blood of the Ancient One is pretty scary at this point.
Just the fact that it's so much stats on board, and you could potentially die if you don't answer it, just from the damage itself.
Well, right now, N'Zoth, I believe, brings back a Fugan and 2 Dreadsteeds.
Well, you also forgot the Dreadsteed that...
maybe it's 3 Dreadsteeds.
I think it might be 3, but you could be right. Or at least there's going to be 3 Dreadsteeds at least. And you get to work with 3 1/1s clogging the board, but it might be better than nothing.
Oh, it's 4 Dreadsteeds. Well, now they have 5 Dreadsteeds. Oh, another Ancient One! Could this actually be a game where the Ancient One wins it?
You know, that has to be the way BlizzCon ends. The crowd is cheering for it. I mean, you're never going to win the board back in the long game. Your opponent has a 5/5 every turn and Dreadsteeds. The Chariots have arrived. And you don't have much time left. And remember, Druid scale or Priest scales really well into the late game, considering that they have not just N'Zoth, but other really powerful cards like Mind Control, Confessor Paletress. They still haven't revealed the Prophet Valen. They have Sylvanas.
All right.
Here we go.
There it is.
Let's
the Ancient One is here.
No answer from RazerStore. They've had the Shadow Word Death used already, and how are they going to tackle this 30-30?
The Doom of Worlds waits once more.
Power Word
Shield. What will it find? Raza cannot do it. Are you serious? Is this how the Tavern versus Tavern Finals is going to end?
If you told me BlizzCon 2017 would end with the Ancient One hitting the face for lethal, I would have slapped you silly. That is not going to be...
Oh, but they
I can't
found
believe
their own
it.
lethal. The Dreadsteeds are going to kill them with the unlicensed Apothecary rather than face the wrath of the Ancient One. And it will be the Cave who are your Tavern versus Tavern champions.
Weave in the background celebrating. The Cave fought back valiantly, and turns out they didn't need the Druid strategy after all.
I could not have imagined a better end than that. We saw the Ancient One. We saw Unlicensed Apothecary. We saw it all. That was fantastic.
I'm speechless. I did not expect that to happen whatsoever when I was looking at it. I thought Blood of the Ancient One was just kind of a joke, and it ends up being quite the force to be reckoned with. They had no answer for it, and that was perfectly baited. In a corner case scenario, the Cave was able to pull out a unique strategy that I have never seen in Hearthstone.
And I love the fact that the Cave was able to take a very clearly measured approach, a strategy involving the Jungle Giants, involving delaying lethal on their opponents to generate more resources and be rewarded as the champions.
TJ is waiting with our champions for a couple of words on their win.
Thanks very much, Dan. That's right. I'm waiting on stage with the Cave after their Tavern versus Tavern win. Congratulations, guys. First question, how does it feel?
It feels amazing. And it feels great to win like we did with the 30-30. Like, you never get to see that in competitive play.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun way to end things. And Rich Webbs, when you guys signed up for the Tavern versus Tavern tournament months ago, did you expect to make it to the finals, all the way to the finals, and win it?
I'm gonna be honest, I did expect it. I was going into it literally thinking I'm going to BlizzCon.
Well, that's the right attitude to have.
We're here.
You are, and you won.
Correct.
All right, and what does it mean for sort of the community at the Cave and your guys' Tavern community to win this?
Well, all of us have been like really supporting, and as you see, we had a big turnout, so it means a lot to just confirm that we are like the top tavern.
Awesome. Well, again, congratulations, guys. And to present your trophy to your innkeeper, let's go ahead and welcome to the stage production director for Hearthstone, Jason Chase.
They looked at the wrong side of the tavern. It was like an empty side, no one came through.
On behalf of Blizzard Entertainment, we'd like to thank both teams for joining us here today and congratulate the Cave on their victory. You guys have done an amazing job representing your tavern and all of its patrons. Congratulations on being named the world's first Hearthstone Tavern versus Tavern champions.
And once again, a big congratulations to the Cave and a well-deserved trophy. Let's go ahead and send it back over to the desk to close out the show.
Woo. Wow, what a weekend. That's an ending that you won't see ever again.
I almost can't believe it.
I'm shocked.
We were even joking in one of the previous games. Oh yeah, at least they got to play the Ancient One. No, they won with the Ancient One.
Yeah. Well,
that is how everything ended.
I mean, they almost won the first time with it. That thing is really serious.
30-30 is pretty big. It's pretty big.
Well played by the Cave, and I think they said it better themselves. Their confidence, their play, and also their bold strategies. Got to give it to them. I think the RazerStore SF, they stuck to a very good, solid line of plan. Like, we'll just play value, play proper, make good trades, play percentages. And they just went for they shot for the stars.
And now they are stars.
And they landed on the moon. Oh man, that was quite the marathon. That was over 2 hours of gameplay. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That was definitely worth the wait. Kepler, what's been your favorite moment of this weekend as we wrap up everything here on the Hearthstone stage at Blizz?
That right there. How can you top that? The Ancient One actually closing out a championship event on the BlizzCon stage. It's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. For me, I personally enjoyed watching Kranich 6-0 the Chillblade Crusaders on stage. That was definitely like kind of a chilling moment because I know how much it means to some of those players to win on BlizzCon stage. Kranich got to 2 years of the World Championship here at BlizzCon, back-to-back consecutive years. And for him, early exits was really devastating because he really wanted it. And now he can live that through a different avenue. Perhaps not necessarily the same glory, but definitely a very heartwarming moment. Plus the way it went down with Reynolds being like, well, Kranich was in for the ride. Some sweet irony, I think, to wrap up the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that both events we had here this weekend really showed off the playful spirit of Hearthstone. We got to see a lot of players playing some wild and crazy formats and winning in some wild and crazy ways.
That's right. We had a lot of unique formats this weekend, but if you're a big fan of the way Hearthstone is used to be seeing here at BlizzCon, we're going to have the Hearthstone World Championships in Amsterdam coming up in January 18th to 21st in 2018. It's going to be held in what I was told, the old stock exchange, so it's going to be a lot of fun times. It was an event worthy of BlizzCon, a double dose of Hearthstone like you've never seen before. In the Fireside Gathering Tavern vs. Tavern tournament, get ready. Fairfax, Virginia, the Cave is bringing the Grand Final Championship home to you. And in the Hearthstone Inn-vitational, the unique team format provided thrills and excitement and ended with the biggest surprise of them all. A big congratulations to the Cave from Fairfax, Virginia. And meanwhile, Kranich, the lone survivor on the Grimeshoe Grifters, knocked out opponent after opponent, unleashing a stunning win streak to bring the title back to Korea. And so ends our amazing 2 days. We'll see you at HCT World Championships. Until then, job's done.